Hello and welcome to Visual Passport number 2. Today we're going to analyze the film Babette's Feast. This is a Danish film situated in the 19th century. It is based on Karen Blix's short story and, fun fact, is the first Danish movie to win an Oscar. This movie is about two Danish sisters, Philip and Martine, who are honoring their father's memory. He was a preacher and they honor him by doing God's work, helping others and hosting prayer groups. All their life they have rejected love, marriage, and children. They dedicated their whole life to God. One day, Babette, who is a refugee from the French Civil War, comes to work from them as their cook and housekeeper. Many years pass without change, but all of a sudden Babette wins the lottery and ends up with a huge amount of money. Instead of using that money to return to France or to live by herself, she decides to cook a real French banquet for everyone. She spends all her money in it, making it delicious and elegant. Most of the people eating try to hide their delight with the food, as they believe they shouldn't enjoy earthly pleasures. But it is so good that at the end, their superstition breaks down and they enjoy it. Finally, Babette confesses that she was a top chef in one of the best cafes in Paris. By the end, in my opinion, the film is about talents and passions used and not used. Now, analyzing the critiques from the experts, we have mostly positive critics since it is an Oscar winning movie, but also some critics are not that favorable. One of the best ones, it was rated with 100 out of 100, was by Empire from David Parkinson. He mentions that it is an impeccably mounted and play. This is a gastro cinema at its most sensual and intoxicating. And one of the critiques that was not so favorable was from the Chicago Tribune. They gave the Babette's Feast 75 out of 100, and they say it is a strangely powerful and yet meandering film that takes a long time to make its point. And I personally agree with this last one because I think it is a long movie. The Except from the final and the dinner and the revelation that Babette was actually a chef, I think the rest of the movie is kind of boring, kind of slow. Also, it lasts almost 2 hours, and only the last part is quite of interesting. But I personally don't like it that much. But I also understand that it has a lot of cultural context and cultural meaning since it is not a nowadays film. It was filmed actually and released in 1987. So it is portraying a lot of the thinking and of the way of living of the Danish society, and there is where its value resides. Now we are going to analyze the form of the image and the meaning of images using my mind map. First, I'm going to describe the form of the image in the movie, and then I'm going to analyze the meaning of the images shown in the film. First of all, the movie can be divided basically in two parts. The first one being depicting most of the normal life of these Danish women, and the second one is where Babette is preparing the whole banquet, and the images shown in the first and in the second part of the movie are very different, and we are going to see why. For instance, the color and the aesthetics in this film in the second and in the first half are very different. In the first half, most of the colors, as shown in the mind map, are grays, blacks, some pinks, and in the second half of the movie, there are a lot of colors since food is shown, fruit, pineapples, mangoes, grapefruits. There is a lot more variety of colors. Addressing the aesthetics, in the first half we can appreciate it with the Denmark landscapes that are shown. We can see sunsets, we can see the beach, we can see the houses. And on the other hand, in the second half of the movie, the aesthetics are shown with the food. Talking about composition, we can see that the director in this film also depicts repetition and rhythm both in the first and in the second half. In different ways and with different objects. In the first half is with people many times, and in the second half is mainly with food and desserts. And addressing the topic of the rupture of representation, this whole movie is about that, how Babette comes and breaks down with that fist the ideas and the way of living these women had, how they all their superstitions about not being able or not wanting to enjoy life because they shouldn't and God doesn't want that, changes, their perspective changes, and Babette is the one that rubs with all of this. And finally, I would like to add that this movie is a clear example of how art is a communication code. It transmits a message, and I don't think there is a more evident way than with the preparation of the feast. The food is something we can appreciate through the sense of smell and through the sense of taste. Nonetheless, the director and the production of this movie are able to transmit the exquisite taste, and we can imagine the smell of this food only through images, and I think that is something incredible they achieved. After concluding this second visual passport and as we move on with the class, I realized even more that the study of images is way more important than what I consider it to be. Images affect the way we perceive messages, and at the same time, they transmit a message by themselves. I am applying my new learnings by analyzing more in detail the daily images I consume in movies, in social media, in advertisement, in posters, among many others. Now, when receiving visual communications, I question what other hidden meanings are present, and I also reflect about the amount of work and dedication that is behind every single one of those images.